how many of you photograph men, or men are your frequent clients? How many of you shoot weddings? How many of you shoot commercial portraits? Okay. So how many of you have trouble shooting men? Do you feel like you get in front of the camera and it's, okay, there's this guy, he's just standing there. How do I pose him? What do I do? What am I looking for? And it's really common, right? We look at men and we see these kind of just rough faces, kind of just gaunt and stoic, and we don't know what to do with them, as opposed to women are very beautiful, very flowy, and we know how to pose them because we're looking for those curves. We're looking for the accentuation of jawlines and beautiful faces and things like that. We don't have the same appreciation for men because we just don't know what to do a lot of times. So I started doing a lot of portrait photography with women. And what I realized quickly is the same thing that we're doing with women, we can also replicate and shoot men in the same style. So you just kind of picking up your camera and looking at a man, everything kind of falls apart. You don't know what to do, but the concepts and the techniques are still there. You're still using the same techniques that you do with women with men in a different standard. So I tend to shoot very, very, very dramatic lighting styles. And I'm going to show you guys different lighting styles that we're going to go over today. Specifically two different lighting styles that we wind up using. I have multi-purpose for both women and for men. So it's nothing that is strictly for men, strictly for women. We'll talk about the second lighting setup that I wind up using, but I've used that one for lookbooks. The first one is kind of really standard portraiture. Westcott Zeppelin that I love, and the reason that I'll use it, we'll go over that in a minute. So next thing is, photographing men can feel extremely overwhelming. There was lots of times where I'd sit in front of a camera and like I said, I wouldn't know what to do. Here's a guy, how do I pose him? I'm gonna take his photo, this is him. This is the most uncomfortable position you ever want to be in. And that translates to my clients, right? Because if I'm trying to shoot them and I'm looking at them with like my mouth open, okay, what do I do? That doesn't translate well in regards to sales, right? They think you don't know what you're doing. So it's good to kind of have some aspect of what we're trying to do. So the only difference between shooting men and shooting women is the minute details. The small little tiny variations in details when it comes to lighting, why you light certain ways, the small attention to details of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. But the lighting styles can be the same. The posing can be very, very similar. The editing can be very, very similar. Retouching, everything is very, very similar if you want it to be. So you can replicate everything that you're currently doing with women, with men. So next is an example. Okay, so next is an example of two different photographs that I use the same lighting for, different editing techniques, but the same lighting's there and similar posing in regards to the way that their face is structured, right? They're both looking over to the side. Their eyes are more or less in the same position, but the lighting concepts are exactly the same. So I shot the one on the right before I shot the one on the left. And the one on the right, specifically for a client that I wound up having that has these extreme metal pieces and she wanted to just showcase those, that right one was featured in Elle magazine for Sweden, right? So it's a good way to represent, oh, it's a women's portrait that was featured in this publication. Why can't I just do that with guys? All I did was add a bit of contrast and a little bit of, just kind of underexposing his face a tiny bit to showcase his eyebrows, to showcase his jawline. Those are the things that I was looking at there. But the premise of what I'm looking for is exactly the same, okay? So what am I looking for? Here's a nice tip. I don't really do statistics very often. This is the last statistic that you need to know for men, okay? When a partner is looking for a man, when a woman or a man is looking at a man as a potential partner, what are they looking for? Guys, this is gonna, and Russ as well, this will make you feel great, right? Because 30% of women and men that are looking for men are attracted to style, right? What a person's dressed like, how they present themselves. 26%, it has to do with the handsome face. 15% is your height, 13% is muscular build, and 12% is fitness. 4% is other, which is probably money. I'm joking. So if I look at this, what do I have control over as a photographer? You know, what do I have direct control over? I know that I have control over a person's style. I can advise a client, this looks good on camera, this doesn't look good on camera. That's too big, that's too small. I can use an A clamp, if you guys seen somebody that's wearing too big of a shirt, to clamp the shirt to make it look a little better. I can retouch, I can take certain variations of clothing out to exude the correct clothing and style and size for a person. Next thing I'm worried about is the face. I know I have direct control with lighting, with retouching, with everything that I do as a photographer. That's what I have direct control over. I don't have direct control over, is that person good looking, but I can go ahead and light them so they look good, right? That's our jobs. Next one is height. Now, how do you control height? You shoot at a lower angle. You can shoot with a wider lens if you want to shoot, let's say, portrait and kind of elongate the body. There's many different ways that you can play with a person's eye to help them look taller. I have direct control over 71% of why men look good. Now, how awesome is that for you as a photographer to have direct control over the way that somebody looks? So if you guys have a client that's sitting there asking you to take a photo of them, no one hires you to take a bad photo. Name one client that to ask you, I'm gonna pay you $1,000 to take a bad photo of me. Not a single person, right? So I know that I need to make everyone look good. And I know that I have direct control over 71% of the way that people look in a photo. So let's look at this. 30% is style. Well, now what does that mean? I'm not talking about colors. I'm not talking about collars, whatever you want to say in regards to colors, textures, and style and the latest trends. It's not what I'm speaking about. I'm talking about fitment of clothing and why it's important to men. When you guys are thinking about fitment of clothing, a suit tops, the way that they look in photographs. I was just at a wedding where the groom looked like he was a little boy in a man's suit. And I'm sure you guys have seen that as well. It's an oversized suit, right? Fitment of suit is extremely important with the final image. So these are different photographs. This is, I don't agree with the name of the company, but it's Real Men, Real Style, which is styling men, right? I can argue that all day. But if you look at the shoulders, right, the fitment just right, it lays completely over the shoulder in a good image. If it's too small, it tends to bunch up, all the sleeves bunch up, and that last one's too big, right? You can provide your students, you can provide your clients with a diagram and say, you know what, do you look good the day of the shoot? Do you want to invest in clothing? The same way you do with kids and say, listen, look, can you invest in this because I want you to look this way. I don't want you to wear all black and like a white t-shirt or thrown jeans. If you're trying to look good in a photo, if you're trying to have, let's say, a CEO for a company, what are you looking for in the photograph? The second I go to take that photo, how do the shoulders look? What's happening in the photo? Because that's what we forget. We're so focused on the face, no one's looking at the styling of the man, and that's really what's going to represent the final image. I can still take a photograph, even at, let's say, cropped, mid-crop. He doesn't have to wear pants. I mean, he could be basically in underwear. It doesn't matter, right? As long as that top portion looks good. So next, fitment of pants. If you're shooting full length, right? This is very, very, very important. No one, unless it's in style, and I'm not going to discuss style, high waters are not attractive when it comes to men. It makes them look short or tall, depending on the person. Usually it makes them look like they have too small of pants, and it's very, very awkward. Too big makes them look like little kids in men's clothing, right? It's not attractive. So those of you that are going on dating websites, by the way, you were looking at my pants. I saw that. You were like, how's it fitting on his pants? And look at this. Look at that last one. It fits. So I want to always make sure that I look the best for my client as well. So these are the same tools and tips that I use when I'm meeting my clients. I want to make sure I represent myself in the right way. We're not talking about me, we're talking about clients here. But again, I digress. Pants is another issue. Shirts. If I put my shoulders back, you notice that this is extremely tight. My buttons are starting to bulge. Many men will wear shirts to overcompensate for their size by wearing too small of a shirt. And bigger men will tend to wear too big of shirts to compensate because they're bigger. The problem is they start looking like they're swimming inside the shirts. Okay, so if you guys start looking at the torso, when you guys are tucking in your pants and you guys are looking at a portrait of a male, make sure they're tucking in their shirt because it looks baggy, it doesn't look attractive. So it's not just taking the photograph. These are things that I can fix in retouching. A little bit of liquify, I can take those little wrinkles out of here if I need to, but know what you're looking for when you're trying to retouch. Those things are important to make a man look confident. Clothing is all about confidence, right? The way you dress, the way that you look is all about confidence in the way that you're presenting yourself. So it's extremely important. So if you guys do want more style tips, I love Pinterest. I used to save all my photos on my computer, and I just found it irrelevant because all the space and things that you have, everything is now on Pinterest. If you notice, Sagerfedge is technically my name backwards. I don't care how you pronounce it, that's just what it is. It's just my name backwards. I have dyslexia. You can call it Sojor or whatever, whatever. Okay, 26% of face. What am I looking for in regards to making a man physically attractive, right? So I was speaking to Russ earlier, which was, I said to myself, if I were to photograph Russ, what am I looking for? I'm doing homework now. I'm trying to figure out what does Russ look like? What physical attributes do I find attractive about Russ, right? And the first thing that I like about Russ was his symmetry. Because every photo he takes of himself, he doesn't have a good angle, right? Because we see a lot of people, they'll take a selfie, let's say, and always do it in this angle, and always do it in this angle because they're ashamed of their other side, or naturally they just have one side. Russ's face is extremely symmetrical. He doesn't care because he has a very symmetrical face. Must be nice.
It's the only face I've got.
So, I look at his face, I'm seeing that I like the symmetry with regards to his face. So I know that I want to photograph that. I can still shoot him direct, doesn't matter where I'm posing him. I'm doing my homework before I meet my client, let's say if Russ was my client, to see what his best attributes are. Sounds like stalking, I promise you it's not, it's homework, okay? So again, what variations does he have his neck? Is he conscious? And the other thing that you can tell is when somebody's taking, let's say, a selfie, where they're putting their neck in relation to their body. Are they conscious, let's say if they have a double chin, are they conscious of that? Do they tend to put their face down? Do they tend to shy away from a certain side? Those are things that you can look at when you're shooting any type of client. So if a client is asking you to work with them, just ask them, hey, can you send me a couple photos of you guys so I can see what I'm working with so I can prep for the day? If they sound a little weirded out by that, I would just explain, listen, look, I like to do my homework the same way I did to you guys. I would like to look at what your best angles are, what you guys feel comfortable with, because I think it's imperative to your photo shoot. Okay. Eyes, jawline, cheekbones, and lips. Okay. So if I'm looking at somebody, what do I find the most attractive about that person? Is it their cheekbones? Is it their jawline? Maybe they don't have a strong jawline. Maybe they have a very, very soft jawline. So how can I accentuate the jawline to make it look more defined? What can I do with lighting? What can I do with retouching to make that look better without necessarily changing somebody's look, right? Those are considerations that I'm having. Eyes. Eyes are extremely important in photographs. It's the windows to the soul. You guys are always looking at eyes. But at the same token, what do we do with men? Again, we put their kind of face towards the camera. We're like, okay, stand there. They look brooding. So what can you do to give a little bit of definition to the eyes? What can you do with lighting? What can you do with retouching to make that stand out in regards to an image? Cheekbones, same thing. We tend to like people with narrow faces. Well, some of us like people with narrow faces that show definition in the face. We like structure. We're just so in tune to structure as photographers and as humans that we love definition in those cheekbones. So what strikes you most about your subject? I use a lot of shapes in my photography. And it wasn't until I really started studying my photography and what I was doing and what I liked about my photography that I really did understand what I was trying to accentuate. Okay? I wasn't always a photographer. I grew up drawing. I used to love, love, love drawing. I got really lazy, and I said, what's the easiest way you can copy somebody's face without actually necessarily spending hours sitting there drawing it? Photography, right? Just saying, that's the easiest way. You can get somebody's face on a paper or on a digital aspect without necessarily drawing them. But I use the same techniques that I did drawing as well as photography. And innately, a lot of us are doing the same exact thing. There's a power and emphasis in structure. And that's why we look at somebody and somebody, let's say if they move their shoulders back and they have their head up, again, it's showing structure, it's showing posture, it's showing somebody who's confident. We tend to look at structures as more confident people. We can also use structure for lighting. We can also use structure to accentuate certain features. So in the process of this model, what I'm trying to do is accentuate his jawline. Now the first thing I used to do when I first started was jawline. What do I do? Turn to the side, because I want to see the jawline. But how do you do that necessarily facing forward? Well, I need to use lights and shadows and contouring with light so I can make it sure that his face is defined. So Michael, can I borrow you for a second? Just temporarily. So our subject, our friend, we're going to call him friend for the day. Our friend Michael today. Michael, if you want to introduce yourself. Hi, Michael. So our friend Michael here, I had a chance to study his portfolio, we'll say. I got a chance to study his face. But if I'm looking at him, what strikes me most about Michael? Aside from his hair, aside from his facial hair, but what physically about his facial structure stands out? And I think that I like his jawline, right? Can you turn your face that way aside? Okay, so if I'm looking at this, what happens when he turns his jawline? It goes away. Those are things I'm considering as I'm looking at my subject. I don't necessarily want to stare at somebody as I'm meeting them for the first time or meeting a client, but just keeping in mind what looks best in that person. Michael, if you want to turn back this way. So other things I'm noticing, I love his cheekbones in certain light, right? I don't like his cheekbones. Sometimes it flattens out. Sometimes it's defined. As a person's walking towards you or as you're having a conversation with a person, if it's a client, keep in mind those aspects of that person's face because you want to accentuate those later on. You don't necessarily want to have to study all night the night before to make it look good the next day. So the other thing I'm liking is I like the curvature. We'll go back into the hair. I like the curvature of his hair. So how do I accentuate those? I like his, what's it called? The way that he shapes his face. I like all the facial hair that he has there. So how do I accentuate those? Those are things that I'm having considerations for before the day of the shoot. I'm going to have you sit down temporarily. So if you want to go ahead and take a seat. Okay. Again, with lighting, how do I use basic shapes to show structure on a man's face? Not all of models will look good in that specific lighting, but I liked his cheekbones in this specific shot. This is the same model that I had before. There goes his cheekbones. I hit his cheekbones. I was trying to accentuate just his jawline, not his cheekbones. Next is his cheekbones and his jawline. So how do I do that with lighting? So this is natural light. Respect. This is natural light. This is studio lighting. I have more control in the studio, so I can go ahead and accentuate certain things in facial features. Next is necklines. I also liked his neck. I elongated his neck by accentuating those with triangles. So if you look at the way the base of the lighting is, as well as the shape and posing that he has, everything is structured in triangles. Everything is structured in some form of basic shape. So let's go forward. Lighting for men. So I loved lighting specifically in a studio environment when I first started photography because I felt like I can control everything. But the problem is it gets a little boring, right? Because you get to manipulate everything. So how do you give yourself a challenge? I love shooting natural light now. It gives me a bit of a challenge to figure out where a subject looks best and how the light looks best. I've started shooting a lot with, I'll go back one, and work. That's natural light, so we'll go with this one. I started shooting, and if you guys look at the catch light in his eyes, I started shooting a lot in window light with a V-flat or a V-flag with that person in between. I call it, this is gonna sound funny, I call it the man closet, right? So like they're standing in between and they're inside, and I'm like, okay, and it feels like a coffin, so you kind of have to walk them through that, but like, can you go stand in there? And they're looking at you a little weird. Anyway, I digress. So if I look at the lighting that I'm having, I'm using it because it's difficult to, if you don't have the tools to go ahead and manipulate natural light. If I don't have a reflector, if I don't have the basic equipment aside from my camera, what do I need to do to pose that person's face? What direction, what tonality, what pose do I need to do to make sure that light is best? And how that helped me as a studio photographer was I was able to translate everything that I was doing with natural light and how complicated it really was without tools back in the studio, and I was able to kind of minimize the time that I needed to do things on set. Okay, well, I need to move this light, this high, because that's usually where the light's moving from. You can start replicating those lights in studio. And I do, I have it on Facebook, but I need to go ahead and post it elsewhere. I have this same light that I shot natural light and studio light to replicate the same thing, and it looks very, very similar aside from the contrast of the jawline. But it looks, it's replicatable, if that makes any sense. So let's go forward. So lighting for men. It's very quiet in here. I love simple lights, okay? When we're shooting in a studio, we tend to put 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you have at your studio, we tend to overcomplicate things, right? But we really need to go back to the basics of what we're trying to shoot if we're trying to grow as photographers. We need to fine-tune and master those little tiny lighting concepts before we move forward, right? So I tend to build light now, meaning I take one light, okay, that light looks good. I take the second light, that looks good. I take the third light, if I want a third light, that looks good. I'm building light, right? I'm progressing, I'm evolving my lighting. A lot of people will put 3 lights in there and hope it looks the best. Okay, that one kind of moves over there, this one. It's very, very complicated to do that. So what I started doing was minimizing the amount of light that I have on set. Why? Because I can go ahead and focus on what's important, which is, does my client look good? That's ultimately what you're doing, right? You want to make your client look good. I don't care how well lit that photo is, but if your client doesn't look good, it's really not a successful photo because they're the ones that are going to pay you for said photo, right? So you can think the lighting's great, but if their jawline doesn't look good and they look 1,000 pounds heavier than they really are, probably not a successful photograph. You want to accentuate their features. So with that, the reason I started using this Zeppelin was because it gave off a very, very interesting form of light. We're actually going to turn this one on for today. Like how I look at it, and I'm like, how do you work? I do know how this thing works, I promise you. Do we have a sandbag so I don't kill anybody with this light, if you don't mind? I'm very, very conscious about safety in the studio because you don't want to ever have to make a claim on insurance. I promise you, no one likes claiming on insurance. Let me put this down for 2 seconds. I promise I will pick this up and not lose it, okay? And if you guys see me struggle for whatever reason, I just had shoulder surgery like 5 months ago, so I'm still getting used to this right arm, or having a right arm for that matter is what it feels like. So I did this little thing called sling diaries every single day. Things that I had to learn to redo, like brushing your teeth. You ever had to relearn to brush your teeth? It's not fun. It's very embarrassing. Okay. So what I'm looking for is I want to accentuate Michael's face. And I'm looking, so those of you that can't see Michael, you know what? Can you stand over here for 2 seconds? Okay, it's the total opposite of what we were before. So if I look at directly this way, if I'm looking at split lighting, let's say, and I'm focusing here, I can see the split light on his face. I can see what's accentuating in that specific light. Michael, can you turn your head right? You got confused there, I saw that. And face left? Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm looking again where the light's kind of based on what his best features are. Michael, what's your best side? What do you feel is your best side when you take, where do you take your selfies? Which angle? Like, how do you hold your phone?
I'm anti-selfies.
Are you anti-selfies? How dare you? How do people, where do you pose when somebody takes a photo of you?
Usually this side because I prefer this tattoo.
So so don't be afraid to ask people that. Notice he's anti-selfie, but he likes that tattoo. Why don't you like that tattoo?
It's too long of a story for this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Series cover up. At that.
Okay. So I do like, let's say, I like the tattoo, but I'm not thinking about tattoos. I'm thinking about where he's comfortable, right? That's the first thing I'm thinking about. He doesn't like that one. That can make him feel a little uncomfortable if I shoot him from that side. I'm asking those things as I'm kind of narrating everything. Okay. So I'm going to have you just move back a tiny bit. We're going to try to figure out where the light looks best. I'm going to turn this thing on. Okay, so here's my secret. I always keep my modeling light to max power. I don't generally leave it to prop, only because I like to make it look as best as possible. Okay, so it is difficult to use the, so you guys know, in our studio, my business partner and I, my business partner and good friend Lindsay Adler, our studio is, I'm also human resources in our relationship. So those of you guys know, it's my significant other. I'm also human resources, so it's totally cool. Totally cool. In our studio, we have a very form of mixed light with the large bay windows that we have. We have a very narrow studio. And within, I would say, 15 feet, we already are in studio space, right? So at this point, that's where he is. My windows are there. I'm constantly looking at a mixture of light. We do have, what's it called? We do have curtains. I rarely use them. I'm like, whatever. I'm that whatever photographer. Like, as long as it looks good, that's all that matters. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, thank you very much, by the way. What am I seeing about his facial features that I like? I told you guys I like his jawline, right? Can I have a camera, if anybody doesn't mind? I'm gonna sneak this way. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. I'm gonna use an 85. Why? I don't know. Go with it. Thank you, ma'am. Do you know why I'm walking very, very slowly? Because styling-wise, I have little metal tips at the bottom of it, so it doesn't ruin my shoes. And therefore, it scuffs, and then all you guys have to hear the it's not fun. It's not it.
I was really cognizant about not walking on the
So if you guys saw Brooke Shaden's powder and slipping and dying again. Okay, so I'm looking, well, I digress. I'm gonna put my camera down. I usually would have a camera holster on. I'm just gonna go ahead. You can't because of the clothes that you're wearing. See, I can't wear a camera holster because, so I need to make sure I wear one next time. Okay. First thing I'm looking at in regards to our Michael here, our friend Michael, is how does the shirt look on him? As I'm about to take his photo, aside from lighting, how does it look on him? I know that it's very bunched here, right? If I was gonna retouch this, can you turn sideways just a tiny bit so they can see it? It's very, very bunched at the bottom. How much of a pain in the behind would that be to retouch? So those are considerations I need to have, right? The second thing I'm noticing, I'm not making fun of your clothes, I promise.
Jeff, I don't know that we got a shot of that, of what you're seeing now. I just want to make sure that that you guys are getting a shot of this right in here.
Sure. If you want to move forward, or if you look forward.
Yeah, come on over this way.
Notice I've never touched him at any given point. I move him with my hands and I move him with my explanation. So those of you that are photographing people, just try not to touch people. Some people don't like being touched. Other people feel very awkward about it. Okay, so I'm looking again. I don't know if you guys got the shot there. I'm looking at his clothing, it's very, very bunched up. Next thing I'm noticing is I loved the way that he has a V-neck. And the reason I loved the way that he had a V-neck, I love the fact that he's wearing a V-neck. I asked him to bring one, and here's the reason why. Those of you that are in tune to wearing regular t-shirts that have that round cut, what happens? I take a photo, this is his neck, this little area. So if my client has a very, very short neck, this is all I have, this little tiny area. V-necks elongate your neckline, right? So if I had to shoot somebody in a t-shirt, I would prefer a V-neck over just a round cut or a shorter cut. I like to accentuate the neck. Think about basic shapes before. And I mentioned that because of posing. I want the longest, I'm gonna turn you, if you wanna walk forward. Sorry for moving you forward and backward, left and right, and reverse. Okay, so if I'm looking at him, if his shirt was here, what happens? This is his neck. The fact that I have some extra distance and triangle, I get to see elongation of his neckline. So if I want him to look like he has a longer neck, I can do so. So just make sure that I asked him to bring those things. If somebody's gonna show up in a t-shirt and that's all they're gonna wear, can you at least bring a V-neck? That's all you need to ask. So I'm gonna move you back. Thank you, sir. Okay, so next thing I wanna do is accentuate his jawline, accentuate his neckline there, and we're in the brooding pose. That's our photo, right? But we discussed before, what is it that Michael enjoys about his angles? What does he feel comfortable doing? He likes that tattoo. If I have that tattoo, he tends to be more comfortable than the other one, just by asking that one question. So if I ask him, can you do me a favor and turn slightly towards the side? And also, guys, I'm gonna move back so you guys can get the shot as well. The other thing is, Michael, you're a professional model / athlete, correct? Okay, so he's fit. But what happens if you don't have a fit model? So this is where I get into posing. Turn to the side slightly.
Which side?
That side towards that background. So as I'm turning him, his width of his waist starts narrowing down. Nothing happened. It's not like he lost any pounds or he's fit. But just by turning to the side, here you go. You turn to the side, how much less size do we have? Even turning slightly helps out in regards to posing a man, right? So if you have a subject that is wider, you probably don't want to shoot them width to width. Just shooting them over to the side a tiny bit. The other thing I told you is I want to accentuate his neckline. So how is that like? I'm going to have you switch around so they can see you as well. Okay. How does his neckline look in regards to if I was going to take this as my final photo? Well, here we go. Here goes those basic triangles. The bottom of the neckline here, the shirt here, here's the accentuation of the triangle there. I go ahead and have a longer definition of his face just by turning him over to the side. Now, if I wanted more, I can go ahead and shoot a little bit lower, just so I can get more accentuation in the neckline. If he had a longer neck and I don't want to showcase that, I could shoot a little bit higher and shoot down so I can see our subject. So, Michael, you're probably as tall as I am, right? So we're pretty even. But if you're shorter, you're taller, you have to compensate for those things in the studio. You can't just, okay, I'm gonna take your photo and just hope it's good. You need to compensate. Is he tall? Is he short? Do I need to make his neckline look longer? I need to compensate for those things. So we're finally gonna take a picture. Let's see. I just gotta make sure we're on the right settings. How about that? Format camera. Let's see, picture style. I'm gonna show you guys, I'm gonna shoot a monochrome, only so we have a focus on the light, not the colors, not the details, anything aside from that, how the light looks on Michael, okay? See what we look like there, perfect. Can you turn to the side? You know what, we'll do two. I'll show you guys what it looks like in two. So 1, 2, 3, perfect. Okay, this needs to be on. My fault, user error. Perfect, we'll try that one more time. 1, 2, perfect. Okay, let's see what that looks like. And I'm gonna move this away, only because, can we bring up that shot there? Thanks, John.
You want white fill or?
No, just if you want to put it to the side, I will use white fill, just temporarily. Okay, so if I'm looking at the light that we have here, if I was just gonna take a standard shot of Michael, right? What am I seeing? Michael, don't look at this. I promise you it'll be better. Okay. What happens? Shorter neckline, right? Because if I'm shooting him directly, he tends to put his chin down. Next is, I told you I liked his jawline. What happens? He smiles, he brought his neck back. It's not accentuating his neckline. I need to ask him, can you put your chin forward a tiny bit to accentuate his jawline there. Next is, I have no clear-cut definition in his eyes. He has very, very light eyebrows, right? So I need to accommodate for that as well. So what can I do to make those things happen? Well, I know the light right now is just blowing at him. If I raise that light ever so slightly, Move it down a tiny bit, I have a bit more contrast in his face, right? Because the higher we have light, the more shadows we're filling underneath. So those are two ways that I can go ahead and accentuate those. The other thing I'm noticing is the left side of this is very, very flat, right? I want to have, it's too dark for my taste, right? If this was just a standard portrait, I want a tiny bit of light in there. I want to accentuate as best as possible. Next is how wide he looks in the photo, right? So so the famous words of Lou Freeman, if you guys have ever seen her class, is we all want to look tall, thin, and beautiful, right? That's generally, men too. This is not just women. All men want to look thinner, taller, and more handsome. I'm not going to say beautiful because that would be awkward, okay? So we all want to look better. I'm not doing my job by this photo. I'm not, right? I want to accentuate his jawline, make him look thinner, because right now that's not thin. Michael, you're thin in person. Don't look at that photo, okay? I want to make him look taller. So can you do me a favor, turn over to the side a tiny bit? We'll do opposite side. I hate the fact that you don't like this light, but then it involves moving this over. So for all intents and purposes of teaching, I'm just going to turn it this way. Perfect. Sideways a tiny bit. Okay, so I'm just going to shoot eyes forward. Perfect. Let's see what that looks like. I'm not moving anything aside from, so if I look at these, I don't know if you guys can get a comparison. Look at his neckline. Okay, so if I look at his neckline, I'm shooting around the same compression, but how does his neckline look? I see more skin here, which tends to elongate his neck. I can see his jawline. Okay, I couldn't see that before. He looks kind of straight and squashed. Look at his eyebrows. This eyebrow is completely missing. I'm starting to see eyebrows in certain areas. So I want this to showcase a tiny bit. I can have him move his chin down ever so slightly. I just need to move that light. Okay, so let's say if I'm happy with this. This is happy with the pose. We'll go over posing in a bit. I'm just gonna go.
On the second image, there's a little bit of shadowing on that muscle on the neck.
There is. You know why?
Which makes it look really cool.
Because he's beefy. That's why. I'm just joking. Okay. So you guys joke. So Lindsay always laughs at me because I like all my quote-unquote man crushes, like guys that are like, I like that guy. I wish I was that guy. They're all like tall, brooding guys like The Rock, right? You know, Dwayne Johnson. I'm like, I wish I looked like that, man. I'd walk around. That's a different story.
Get it with Dwayne Johnson.
See? Yeah. That's it. He does as well. Okay, so just moving up that light slightly. Let's see what that does. Perfect. And can you face forward this way? Perfect. Thank you, sir. And chin down ever so slightly, and chin out. Perfect. And I'm going to shoot a little lower. Perfect. Let's see what that looks like. So moving that light up, I should have comparison between those two. Let's see what that did. Guys, look at his eyes. I have a little darker eye here. Just by moving that light up ever so slightly, I'm starting to see the darkness under his eyes to give definition in his eyebrows, in his brow. I can start to see, I had him put his chin down a tiny bit because of the light, but because he's wearing a V-neck, his neck doesn't look so short and squashed. So those are things that I can do to manipulate lighting that way. The other thing I'm worried about is his chin and his shoulder line. If I want to make him look taller, what do I need to do? I can turn over slightly just to elongate the neck. This looks short and squashed, right? So we're going to take one more. Perfect. Face that way for me. Perfect. Okay. Okay, and face towards me a tiny bit. Right there, and eyes forward. Perfect. The other thing that you have to consider in regards to clothing is he's wearing black, so it's also carving out a bit of shadow there. I like that little cart. Thank you very, very, very much. Okay, so the other thing I'm looking at is that he's also wearing black, so it's starting to carve out his jawline. The colors and the variations are going to start manipulating the way that the skin texture looks in somebody's face. So just consider that. If they're wearing white, it can act as a reflector. If they're wearing black, it's going to act as negative fill. So just considerations that way. So let's say say if this was a client for a shot for a portrait. I'm okay with it. His eyes look forward. His eyes look nice and glowing. We'll say that, right? I can see the catch light in both eyes. I wish that this was a bit darker. I would go ahead, if this was post-production, I would just darken up a tiny bit. If you guys use any type of like dodge and burn technique or contouring, at that point I would start doing that. If I can't find a happy medium, and this is a quick shoot, okay? Okay, so these are variations of the same thing. If I wanted to add fill, what could I do? And so you guys know I usually am alone at my studio, unless we have the interns there. and then I make them do this. But I like working alone because it's really personal, and it's really just about whoever it is I'm photographing and myself. So it leaves it very calm and cool. I got this. Oh, look, I can break everything. Apparently I can't do this on my own. I lied. Thank you, sir. That was fun. I did a little like dance there. So if you guys want a dancing class, I can do that as well, apparently. Perfect. Negative fill and positive fill. Positive fill. Did I really just say that? Fill and negative fill. The difference between these two lights is literally just that V flat and the difference that it makes on the subject. You guys saw how he looked before. I told you guys I wasn't happy with the amount of negative fill that he had in his face, all the shadows, all the contrast. I want a bit of fill because it's going to help out. Again, the closer, the farther away, it's going to go ahead and either put more fill in there or take more fill out. All I know is that I'm looking to accentuate a tiny bit without making it flat, right? Flat meaning there's no contrast between the highlights and the shadows. So I'm going to move this back a tiny bit. I'm going to start with this. And how many of you play pool, just out of curiosity? Okay, those of you that do play pool, lighting's just about angles, right? So if that light is hitting there, it should hit his face. Like if the light's nowhere near it, it's not going to hit. So just if you're in front of a client, think about that angles. It's hitting back, it should hit him. You know, just those simple things. Because there are times where I've seen people on set hold the light, hold the reflector, not do anything. Oops, sorry, it's not in the right place, and move it back. It's very embarrassing with this. Perfect. Face same direction. Perfect. Chin up a tiny bit. Awesome. Perfect. Now what's that doing? If I could have a comparison between that one and the one before. So you guys know Creative Live has elves that work in the background, so I can talk and things just happen. Thank you, elves. I appreciate it. So what did that do in regards to lighting? I softened out the shadows that are in the back of his neck because I want the detail that's in there. Again, I'm shooting in black and white, only to show you the difference in lighting and the way that things process, okay? Bringing it in brought light into these shadows here, but what else did it do? It took out all the definition that I had here. I had the definition here before. So then it comes in kind of into taste. Do I want to move the light over? Do I want to move anything over? I know that what I like about Michael specifically is his jawline, his eyes, and I like the muscles that he had before. So just because the back of his head is in shadow, I don't really care. I like the physique that he had in his neckline. I like the fact that I was able to show what Russ mentioned before, all the muscles he had in his neck. I'm okay with the photo that we had before. There's no reason to say, it's too dark, I don't like it. I successfully accomplished what I wanted. Eyes, jawline, and the muscles that he has in his neck. Okay, I'm gonna skip. Those of you at home that haven't seen this setup in a diagram, super simple. Just Westcott Zeppelin. By the way, I had somebody make that, and I think it looks so cute compared to everything else. Okay, I digress. So it is pretty easy of a setup. Next thing, fashion lighting. These two lights. I tend to do things that work for me. I don't really care what, again, as long as you know the rules, you can do whatever you want, right? Photography is all about taste. It's kind of like cooking. I can give you a recipe. I can give you how to create something. You can add salt, take away salt. It's up to you, up to your taste. I can give you the tools and the concepts that I use. I hate, not that I hate, I don't like bringing lots of equipment on set if I have to go somewhere, right? It's just, if it's just me, I told you guys, I had shoulder surgery. I don't want to carry too much. I don't want to injure myself. So how minimal of equipment do I need to bring? Well, I started trying to figure out how to do, like Joel Grimes, kind of like rim light, you know, one light kind of thing. One light, did I say that? A 3-light setup, main light and 2 rim lights. I was trying to replicate that without bringing much equipment. Okay, so how do I do that? And this is when people are gonna hate or love my idea. By my idea, I mean Lindsay's, because I stole it. Thank you. Okay. This giant fellow over here, by not John, the light. I'm gonna move this way, just behind Michael. Michael, if you can move forward for me, just so we can have you nice and safe. Thank you, sir. So I've been asked before, I'm gonna turn this light off. This is where the film crew is gonna hate me for all the lights and darks and facing cameras, and I'm gonna be completely underexposed. It should be fun. Okay, what is this gonna do? Yes, ma'am, and here's Lindsay Adler. Are you ready for your class?
Yes, that's enough.
Don't hurt yourself now. Look at her muscles. Watch this. She works. Okay. So the first thing you guys are going to ask is, do you actually have a 6x4 at home? Yes, I have a 6x4 at home. Yes, I have a 6x4 at my studio. I don't need a 6x4 to shoot the same thing. I just need one if I'm shooting full length. I'm going to show you guys a cheat that I ended up doing. This is shot with a 3x4 because it's cropped right around here, which is fine because that'll fit in a 3x4. The second I want to shoot anything 3/4, I use this. What happens if you want to shoot full length? If this is my background light and I'm having Michael, if you don't mind standing here, what happens to Michael's legs? They're in shadow. I can see the floor. What do I do? Well, I'm using this as my fill light from behind and my background. I'm using it light and background to carve out the person's face. So if you guys look at these images again, not only is it acting as my background, it's a pure white background, it's also acting as the rim lights on my subject's chin and things like that, right? What do I do about that floor? I've used poster board. Masking taped it to the background, sweeped it out, and just did a quick kind of composite on the computer, which is really, sounds complicated, it's really simple. Literally just a sweep, light fills it in, I'm good to go. Super simple that way. I digress, what setting are we at here? I'm gonna switch, this is Pro Photo. Can you switch it to 8? What movie is it? He's like, can we switch it to 11? Does it go to 11? Felix is gonna hate me for making that accent. Felix is totally, he's gonna be like, that's the worst British accent I've ever heard. Okay, can we lower the light a tiny bit? Is there a way to? If not, it's fine.
Tilt it down a little bit, but that's about it.
If you don't mind, sir, this is a 6x4 and it's huge. We almost killed the model today. Oh, it's not a.
him on an Apple box?
No, it's fine. It's totally fine. Just move back. We'll go with that. Yeah, because it'll create some interesting rim lights on the back end. Okay, so I'm going to show, that's, for those of you that's sitting at home, metering wise, you can't really meter. It's like right pressed up against here. How do you meter this? You know what I'm saying? Like there's really no definitive way to say, this is what you need to shoot at, so just kind of put it behind the subject. What are you looking for? So the first thing I'm gonna do is just take my camera. I haven't switched anything. If you notice, I'm at the same settings we are before. And just kind of hope for the best. Perfect. You know what, can I have a 35? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Let's go with this. Perfect. Now I have to kind of get in there. Perfect. So what do I do? What am I seeing? Again, I'm shooting black and white purposely. Okay. I'm probably gonna move the light a tiny bit, but I'm starting to get, if you guys notice, I'm starting to get rim lights around the person without necessarily having multiple lights on set. I'm starting to accentuate not only his shoulders and his clothing. Again, his arms are kind of getting blown out because of where his arms are. If I'm just taking a standard portrait, again, if you think about the way the light is working, it's blowing all this out, and he's actually blocking his own shirt here. So if I'm gonna shoot this, if you notice the photos from before, I kind of had a little bit of separation from the body, just to kind of make sure that it's wrapping around everything. So you know what, John, you know what, let's tilt it completely that way. It's fine. The way it works, it works.
Hold the box.
I won't kill him, I promise.
Ready?
Not today, anyway. Perfect. Yes. Sure, you know what? Why not? It's, get it? Oh, thank you. You don't count as an elf, I promise. Thank you, ma'am. Perfect. Yep, if you don't mind standing on it for me. So I'm gonna take another shot. Perfect. Okay, just for the purposes of getting close in there to actually see what's going on. I'm gonna have you move back ever so slightly. Right there. You're gonna be right up on that thing. Perfect. Okay, what am I looking for? Hands in your, let's see, hands in your front pockets for me, just there. The only thing I'm worried about right now is showing you guys where those rim lights are, okay? And try to turn your body a tiny bit, just facing forward. Just complete, because right now you're like this. So right there, perfect. Thank you. See that one more time? So what's that doing? I'm starting to get my rim lights. It's starting to come out. What you want to worry about, guys, elves, Christmas elves of Creative Live, if you can zoom into this little area right here. Thank you. I can see that I'm not getting blown out edges. That's what I want to make sure, that I'm not overpowering that light. Again, I didn't switch anything. I literally just switched it on, put it more or less where I usually have it, and kept my same settings. I'm not really worried about that. But I want to be sure that his hair isn't too pieced out. If you're doing this with women, same thing. Using highlights in the background are going to go ahead and start piecing out the hair. So just make sure that it's not full power enough to blow things out. Just make sure that you have a nice tonality to that. So scroll down for me. Come on, you got this. Perfect. So I'm starting to see the highlights and edges of the body. Can we go down to about his torso? Keep going down. Oh, you guys like scrolling. Keep scrolling. Perfect. I'm starting to lose a little bit of detail here. Those are things that I want to be aware of. Keep going down. So why is that? Where are Michael's arms right now? They're kind of here. They're closer to the light. So that's why I'm starting to lose a bit of detail. He has his hands back. So what I need to do, I can give a bit of space. I can tell him, you know what? Can you keep your arms at your sides, just kind of be nice and flowy. This is good for any time you want a subject to be shot and you don't want to have a sweep, you don't want to have a background, you want to minimize the amount of equipment you bring. All I need to use is a main light. So in this case, I'm going to use my beauty dish. What am I trying to accentuate here? I feel like this is like R2-D2 on set. It's like this little weird. No one understood that specifically because I'm just a weirdo. And in my mind works differently than everyone else's. So. And just for safety purposes, usually you want to lock this and stuff. Always keep it, those of you at home, make sure that this is facing the right, so if it loosens, it locks itself. Okay. I didn't know that for a long time. Perfect. Again, I'm guesstimating. I don't even remember what my light is. It's not even on. Try that one again. Try that one more time. Let's see. Perfect. And channel, let's see. What are we going to have my channel at? 1B. Okay. Turn it this way, not to kill him. I promise not to kill you today. Actually, I can't really promise that. Okay. Right now, so those of you that are sitting at home, in regards to settings in those ProPhoto D1s, I'm using 5.8 on the front light, or on the main light, and the background's all the way at 8. Yes?
Could the highlights in his arms could be also from a hotspot?
Well, right now, if you look at the way his arms are, like can you do me a favor? Can you just face that way without dying? Perfect. When he poses, what does he do? He's bringing his arms back, right? So if you guys look, move your arms the same way that you were before. You kind of did this, where you're moving forward. What happens? Where are my arms? My arms are back here. This is the first thing that's getting hit by light. If I wanted to make sure that it's not getting blown out, I can move them forward, or I could lessen my light just a tiny bit. Those are the two options you have. So we'll go with that. Okay. I can pose them any way that I want. Remember, those are highlights. No matter where I turn, I don't need to move anything. This is the cool part about this. Group. And off. Doesn't matter where I'm going to pose it. If I take a photo of him here, that background light, we'll go up to 9. One more time. Doesn't matter where I take that photo, there will always be rim lights behind, right? I don't have to readjust anything. That's acting as my rim lights and my background, right? So I don't have to worry about anything. What I do want to worry about is body shape. I don't want to see this on a man. He's bouncing them. He's like, no, they're muscle. Look at that. No one saw that. I was looking over there. He goes, yep, I have those. Okay. For the purposes of shooting a photograph of a man, yes, pecs are large, but that doesn't look like pecs, right? He's fit, so I don't want to see that. So those are considerations, again, that you need to have. What are the highlights doing on the face? Can I zoom in here? Not you, Christmas elves? I'm starting to get a nice little highlight. Instead of using shadows to contour neckline or jawlines, I'm using lights, which is extremely simple. How easy is it for you to, if you have a small space to work in at home, say if you're working in a garage, put a light behind somebody and put a main light and you're good to go. You just keep shooting all day and you don't need to switch backgrounds. And it's cheap. Instead of spending lots of money on backgrounds, it's a way to multi-purpose that. Again, That's fine. Say if I'm happy with the way the rim lights are, and if you scroll in a tiny bit more, neckline. Thank you, Christmas elves. Going back here, as long as it's not blown out and I can see the detail in there, I'm happy. Now, how can you do that? Right in camera, just zoom in, make sure that you can see variations and it's not pieced out. Same with hair. If you scroll up to his hair for me, thank you guys. How does the hair look? Again, I wish it was a little taller, but if you notice here, his hair's a little piecey. I wouldn't want that in my photo anyway. He has a mohawk, so I'd want to lop that off in retouching, right? I only really want to see this here. But there's starting to be pieces here, so I can go ahead and replicate. If I was going to retouch this, theoretically speaking, I would start replicating these lines inside this hair. You know, I would start darkening those things inside there. What I want to worry about is, for retouching purposes, that I don't have to deal with this. So you just kind of want to move up the light at that point, so you don't have to deal with that. But for the purposes of theory today, we're just going to focus on there. Okay, main light. What do I need to do? Again, this is going to be really up to taste. What are you trying to go ahead and accomplish? With women, I like flatter form light because it goes ahead and takes out a lot of the blemishes they have in their skin. But with men, I kind of like a more contrasty image because I like to see the tonalities in their skin. So it's a total opposite in theory, but the lights, again, are the same way. So let's go ahead and, well, I'm going to go ahead and try to turn that thing on. Let's try that again. Technology, it's a great thing. Okay, so I'm going to keep the light flat on his face. And again, I'm building light. I won't kill you today. You're fine. I promise not to kill him. I promise. I'll try my best. So from what I learned of Michael before, this light here is probably not going to be the most flattering, right? Because when we shot him before, I'm shooting directly at him. So I'm going to start flattening out his cheekbones and all those different parameters of his face that I did like. Can I have you step down? Thank you. You are no longer overlord today. Okay, if you move back to the background. Thank you, sir. Moving them down, no longer have to retouch those top things. Perfect. I'm shooting with a 35, so those of you guys are wondering. I just like the cinematic compression of it. That's just me. I shoot video as well. I'm like, 35, I love it. We'll go with that. Perfect. And face forward for me. Beautiful. Sorry, handsome. So I'm all the way at, he said I'll take either. I'm all the way at 5'8", so what do we have? Again, the 35 has weird compression on his face. I would shoot a little further, but again, very, very flat light. If I wanted to, I'm just going to move down the power level of that. This is why you should know these lights before you come on stage. Can you imagine I was like, how do I lower that power? Try this one more time. See? Perfect. So lowering the power, what does it do? Can I have a comparison of the two? Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. What's happening? I would like a medium between that so I can see his eyebrows and his jawline. I'm getting, again, what am I using to carve out his jawline? That's the light, so the light's from behind. I'm not using shadows, I'm not worried about that. I'm using that main light to make sure I have enough light in his face to go ahead and see his face and contour the highlights in his, the shadows under his eyes. The thing that I'm worried about here is it's a very flat form of light, so what do I need to do? I can either tilt it or use grit. Those are my kind of two options. I can move this, tilt it a tiny bit this way. Told you I won't kill you today. Tomorrow's a different story. Perfect. You're like, what are you doing to me? Is it intimidating? Is that it? Okay. Tilt down for me? I promise. You're good. 24-105. So those of you at home that are probably wondering how I'm finding focus, this is probably one of those other things, how do you find focus because it's underexposed? I'm using those same highlights. I can use a highlight on his face just to find exposure and then recompose. So I'm using back button focus to do that. Okay, so what do we have here? It's very, very flat form of light. I'm gonna go ahead and lower it ever so slightly. Just a couple clicks. Again, I'm shooting black. I'm also shooting raw, so I can shoot in tonalities. If I wanted to make sure that this was a nice shot and it was completely color correct, I would shoot a color card before, make sure I'm happy. I shoot everything in black and white specifically just to make sure all my highlights and shadows are in there. It's kind of like retouching. Retouching skin, you have to find the reds and the yellows and the oranges, and it's very difficult to do that by eye because there's so many variations of colors. The second you turn it to black and white, you can actually just focus on the highlights and shadows and the actual skin. Same with lighting. Think about that for 2 seconds. If I'm just finding light on his face, why do I need color? I need to make sure that it's color correct, shoot a color card before. I'm okay with shooting monochrome specifically. I'm shooting raw, process into Lightroom, see all the photographs as they want, and then just make sure that the color correction is correct. Go with that. Perfect. Again, I'm focusing on his highlight. Perfect. Okay, so as we start going in there, you guys are going to start seeing a tiny bit of haloing there. So I'm going to focus. Where are we at? 70. Perfect. Perfect. So what am I starting to see? John, can you do me a favor? Lower that power on the back from 8 to about 7.3. I'm guesstimating. 7.3, 7.5, 7.2, 7.3. Perfect. Perfect. So highlight on his face. Okay, so what was happening before? Can I get those 2 last shots comparatively? Look at his cheeks. Because I'm shooting so bright, I'm starting to get these little 2 hot spots because directly behind his head is my light. Meaning not the modifier, the actual light is right behind his head. Lowering that couple stops, or not a couple stops, just those little points, we wind up having this. And I'm okay with this. I'm starting to see his cheekbones. I'm starting to see his jawline. I can see the catch light in his eyes. I can see his eyebrows. I'm going ahead and accentuating just using 2 lights. I don't need more than that. If I wanted to define his jawline even more, I'll have somebody bring in just negative fill. Just bring in a negative reflector. Okay? Let's see what this looks like in color. What do you guys think? How do I do that? How do I switch to color? One more time. How about this? Before I do this, make sure we're on the right white balance, because that would have been funny. Perfect. Perfect. Chin down, perfect. One more time. Awesome. So right now we're just going over lighting. How does that look? Let's go over a tiny bit. It's a little dark. I would brighten it up a tiny bit, either in post or in camera. That's it. Again, I focused before just in black and white because I wanted to make sure I had the detail that was in the skin, I had the detail that was in the background. I'm complacent with that. Okay? I'm going to have you, let's figure out, we'll go with the next one. We'll go with the next slide. I'm going to have you sit down for 2 seconds before we go over posing, so get a break. So I just went over lighting, just 2 different lighting setups you guys could use at home in either fashion or portrait photography to save you guys time in retouching. So again, things that you can kind of replicate there. Let's turn this off. I don't want to see this. Those of you that are at home that are actually looking for the setup, this is exactly what it is. I can go ahead and move the light anywhere that I want, forward, Rembrandt, or using the backlights in there. That's that same lighting. The only thing that's different with the one on the left is I added a tiny bit more contrast in post-production. That's it. Height. Emphasize height and confidence with posing and camera angle. What does that mean? I'm not asking myself that. I'm asking you guys that in my head. How about that? That sounded awkward. What am I speaking about? This is why I take very small steps on set. Posing. Posing men is very, very simple. And you guys are like, what are you talking about? It's really not that simple. I use the same techniques in posing men that I did with looking at elongating necks. I use those simple shapes, right? Posing is really, and some of the masters of photography just ended up just using just simple triangles within posing, right? They tend to do, hands on hips kind of thing. That's what it started off with. And then it went to do this. What is that? Two triangles. Not that those are good poses anymore, but I'm saying when posing first came out, that's what people were looking at. And if you look at old paintings, if you look at somebody like the Mona Lisa, the theory is that it's literally just a triangle, all the correct angles of light. The other thing is, you ever seen James Dean or let's say Steve McQueen on a car? What are they doing? They're holding kind of over to the side. And if you start looking at the way that the accentuation of the car is comparatively to where they are, it's all triangles. That's really all it is. It's really just basic shapes. It's really no more than that. Okay? Perfect example. This is shot, no modifiers. This is just attention to light and posing subject. So no fill cards, no reflectors, nothing. Okay. how do I elongate somebody's body? I need to make them look taller. So what do I need to do? I shoot at a lower angle. The lower I shoot, the taller somebody looks. Same premise if I had a camera near the ground, then the person looks huge compared to if I had it bird's eye view, what the person looks down. It's just variations of that. So shooting a tiny bit lower of an angle, and posing-wise, using triangles to emphasize length. Length of his arms, length of his legs, length of his posture. The other thing is people tend to overpose, and we're going to go ahead and discuss that. People tend to overpose subjects, right? I want you to, they do minute posing. I want you to move your thumb this way, and your finger this way, and the pinky this way, and your, men don't like to be told what to do. I mean, that's the honest, like most men, I don't know how you guys feel, but that's generally, like, don't tell me what to do. But you can kind of advise us of what to do. Okay, if you give me, oh, okay, can you, it looked cool when you did this, that's fine. Just don't give us minute positions because it makes it feel a little awkward. Let's discuss next thing. Again, fashion tips, meaning contrast in body. What am I discussing here? Using triangles to accentuate length of that person's neckline. He has a very short neckline, so what do I need to do? Even in regards to posing and lighting and shooting at a low angle, I'm shooting a tiny bit lower angle. I'm also using contrast to make him look a little taller. If this was black, he would have a short neck. Because this is black and this is white, I can accentuate his neckline there. So fashion tip that way. Posing-wise, his neckline is touching his shoulder there, which makes his neck look short. What makes his neck look longer is the fact that I can see his neckline here and the excess length of the contrast of the shirt. Next. Try capturing candid photos. So have you guys ever seen America's Next Top Model? I don't watch TV. That guy was on there and I photographed him. I posted it online and somebody goes, is that Phil? And I'm like, how do you know this person? I don't watch TV, I'm ashamed of myself. Okay. Candid photos. Man, I love looking at old photos of guys like Steve McQueen and again, like what's called James Dean. They just embody cool. Why? Because they're not trying. Like that's the honest truth. The second somebody goes and they're like, cross your arms, what happens? It looks very awkward. But if you said, hey, do you mind, or cross your arms, now minute positions, move hand up, move hand down, what happens? You start kind of contorting into a position. It just doesn't look natural. But if you said, hey, can you do me a favor and kind of just cross your arms and tilt forward a tiny bit, what happens? Yeah, no worries. Now it looks natural. Now it looks less posed. Now it looks less constricted in regards to pose. Try shooting candid shots. And this is a point proven. I asked him to do two things at once. I didn't see that.
Is that what you do? That was all me, guys.
The funny part
Sorry
is,
about that.
I wish I could have caught it because I was like looking at you at the time. We go there. Okay. So first shot, can you bring your arm up to your shoulder? Can you bring your arm down to your torso, like towards your waist? And what happens? He went from here, kind of moved down. He did his own thing. I ended up publishing the second photo because I felt that that was more natural. And he looked less hungry, because that one looked hungry to me, and less lonely, So it's like, it's the candid photo of those two. Okay, next. Natural versus pose. This is not implied. I didn't make this up. This is actually in studio. I didn't tell the guy what I was doing. I was like, okay, can you do me a favor and just cross your arms for me? Yeah, no worries. And he did this. So then I kind of started asking him to pose a little bit. And the next thing I asked him was, can you cross your arm this way? Can you put your arm this way? Can you move this way? For what I was envisioning. That's the second shot that I got. That shot looks like I don't want to be here, right? I don't want to be here. But that goes back into the confidence thing, right? That we talked about before, which is explaining to a man what you're looking for, what you're attempting to do, being comfortable, being, hey, this looks good on you, that looks good on you, that doesn't look good on you. Those are things that we're kind of looking at. That looks awkward. If I were to, have a client see that, they don't look at all happy. It's body language, right? Body language emotes confidence. So as I'm looking at all of you, what am I seeing? I'm seeing a lot of nodding of heads. I see a couple crossed arms, like, no, this isn't true. This isn't true. There's always differences in the way that we show body language, but body language expresses things that we're capturing body language as photographers, right? So we have to be conscious of it. What are you trying to exude? So we'll go back into this. What posing considerations we have? Hands in your pockets communicates uncertainty most of the time. That's not a rule. Notice it doesn't say posing rules, right? Because there's a lot of times you've seen like James Dean again and Steve McQueen crossing the arms and they look cool. You look, see, look, he's fine. Look at that. Crossing his arm. Shoulders back communicates confidence. If you have somebody who's like this and they're doing this, they don't look very confident. They look like, Mom, help me. Crossing arms communicates defense. Crossing your arms generally communicates defense, and I don't want to be here, or I don't want to listen, right? Or I don't want to do this. As you're posing grooms, or as you're posing any type of male subject, regardless if it's portrait, fashion, it doesn't matter. That's what that's emoting if you don't have the right perception of the way that the person's face looks. Because they can have a facial structure or look confident and still have their arms crossed without looking confident and kind of looking forlorn. So that's what I'm saying. It's not the rule, it's what you should have as a consideration. So as they're crossing their arms, what are you trying, or what emotion are they trying to imbue? If you're shooting a groom, this is probably not the look you want him to have, because his wife isn't going to be very happy when she sees those photos whatsoever. He doesn't want to be there. Okay, more posing tips. I would go ahead and go to pinterest.com/sagefetish posing men. I'm going to go slide-wise. I'm done with slides, but we're going to have a couple kind of talks and discussions here about posing. And then I have a secret for you guys. Okay? So posing men, I try to put everything as much as I can on Pinterest because it's something I can keep in my pocket, I can refer to, I can pick it up and say, hey, you know what, I was trying to do something like this. You know, you can easily show a client something that you're trying to do and just trying to replicate that. Make sure that it's a very natural motion, because people that try to replicate things make it do it very awkwardly. Point and example, if you're shooting fashion, you guys have seen like the broken doll thing. The second you ask somebody to do that, they're like, okay, got it. And it's like, it's overemphasized. So you gotta make sure you're asking them to do things and still trying to get that natural shot out of them. Candid photos are great. Okay, so those of you, and we'll discuss this, those of you that are looking for more tips, again, Pinterest.com/whatever you want to pronounce my name backwards, /posing-men. And that's actually my website. So nerdy thing, I used to play a lot of video games as a kid. That was my caller ID thing. That is not my business name. Now you guys know the secret. Okay. So posing men. We didn't go very much in depth in regards to posing men. But what I want to say is this. We talked about basic structures before, form and body. Miguel, I'm going to have you stand up with me. Oh, Enrique. Sorry, I'm thinking about something. Come with me. The first thing I said was I said his name wrong. What did he do? I don't want to be here. That's what he's imbuing. Notice now he's putting his hands in his pockets. What is this showing? It's showing I don't want to be here either. I need to, you're okay? You're fine? Yeah. Okay. Body language communicates a lot about a person, right? So as you guys are photographing, never forget that that's what you're photographing. It doesn't matter what position you have in. It doesn't matter if they're this way and they're at the camera, or this way and they're at the camera. It's the way that what you're capturing embodies in the photograph. It showcases a lot. You guys are capturing body language as photographers. Doesn't matter if you have the best strike pose in a fashion shot as you want, as long as it looks like you're emoting whatever emotion that you're trying to get out of that final image. If I was photographing him, the first thing I did was say his name wrong, right? I don't want to be here. Remembering names, that's what he's giving off. If I was going to take a photo of him, that's the first thing that's going to come across. I need to think that if I was going to photograph him, I need to make sure to do it the right way. I need to discuss with him, this is what we're trying to do, this is what we're trying to do. And for him to feel confident and cool. Men tend to be very, very stoic. I don't want to be here, I don't want to get my photo taken. Or they tend to be narcissistic and they're like, hi. It's very, very awkward. So trying to get a coolness out of them in a very calm manner and discussing those. Next thing is, if I ask them, can you do me a favor and just take your hands out of your pockets? Okay? What does he do with his hands? Hands. Men's hands. I've had models with hands, natural hand poses like this. Like this is naturally their hands, right? As men, we're like, Ugh. It doesn't look okay. So what do? Well, if it's a younger person and it looks like Enrique, we're going to go ahead and try to make them look a little cooler and confident. I have this kind of theory behind men, and that's that younger men tend to overpose, and older men tend to just underpose, meaning they just have a natural factor to them. Younger guys, if you notice, when they take a photo, they're like, and older men are like, yeah, whatever, take my picture. Like, I don't really care. And you'll see that in a lot of ads. You'll see much ads where younger men are trying to overemphasize themselves because they're trying to prove themselves, Whereas older men tend to they're very calm, stoic, and calm people. Like they don't need to they've already lived life. They've already done things. You don't really have to show off. Those are things that I like about capturing men, is that physical factor or that physical trait of him. Next thing is, I'm looking at him, and I'm not putting so you guys know, I actually know who he is in person. I'm not just picking on a random person. What is he showcasing now? He's blocking himself. So if somebody's taking a photo, again, you see that? You gotta be just conscious about who you're taking a photo. I'm gonna have you sit down. I just did that just to see what you would do. You're good. Okay, so those are little factors. As I'm speaking, I'm watching him, and I'm looking at you guys and showing what he's doing. People are gonna wind up doing with you while you're on set. They're gonna do this. Okay, can you pose this way? They're gonna do this. Okay, can you pose? Just make sure that you're looking at people's body language. What is it communicating? It's extremely important. So my secret for you guys, for us, I have a secret for you.
I want to hear your secret, Jeff.
I want to make you look like Matt Damon, and I want to make you look like...
If anybody happened to check out Jeff's Facebook yesterday, he posted a picture of me that was kind of hilarious. My face next to kind of a split. He'd said that he was doing research, and it was true, which is kind of creepy, but also awesome. But he put like the top half of Matt Damon's shaved head and the lower half of
David Beckham's
face with his facial hair.
I will get that to Creative Live as much as possible, or as quick as possible. David Beckham down here, definitely Matt Damon from the top up. You guys got to see it. He's like the love child of the two if they had a child.
So sweet to me. So sweet.
Okay, so I discussed before, Russ, do you mind if I borrow you for a second?
I don't mind at all, Jeff.
Okay.
So it's actually kind of funny because there were a few folks in the chat room who were saying, I love Jeff's techniques, these are amazing, but what do you do if you don't have, and this is a direct quote, Michael, a perfect specimen? What if they do if they have more of a, kind of a plus-size average dude?
So the first thing I'm looking at you, Russ, on a serious note, is how do you dress? How do you presenting yourself, and what are you exuding in regards to the way that you're looking? And a lot of the time is, if I'm shooting you forward, the two of us, we're both the same here. We look wider when you shoot us forward. So just kind of turning over to the side, and then I got to worry about, is it wider here too? Like those are considerations that you have to have.
Well, it's funny, as you mentioned earlier talking about style, I do tend to wear a slightly bigger shirt than I actually technically should, and my jeans are also slightly longer than they should. Okay. Absolutely, so I'm paying attention.
I only brought that just for Russ, so you guys know that. I was like, here you go, this is how you can stop. I'm joking. Okay, so what I do notice is, again, the way that he's dressed and form-fitting. So if I was gonna take a photo of him and he was my client for the day, how can I make his jeans look better? If I had clamps, if I had clips, you guys saw Brooke before, she brought paper clips. Those are great. If you guys don't have A-clamps, that's just easy, enough to tie. How are your pants fitting? The other thing is, where do you have your pants tucked in? You got to pull up your pants, man. See, those are good. So what is he embodying? So those are considerations I have. And the truth is, man, we're men. Like we're supposed to all be different sizes, shapes and sizes. Some of us are round, some of us are small. It doesn't really matter. I like the way that you look. Me personally, as a photographer, if I want to make you look as best as possible, I need to make sure that you're showing confidence in a photo, right? Is your body language showing confidence? Right now, he's doing this. What does that bring attention to?
The fact that I'm trying to hide out this stuff.
There's no reason to hide it out, but you do that. The first thing you do is you bring your shirt and you tuck it in. So if you guys, sorry, I got to kind of, no, you're fine. Okay. If you guys, when you do that, what do? You're bringing your shirt in, which does what? It rounds this out. So if I was going to make him look a little skinny, so this is the great part about working in fashion and working as a portrait photographer. You kind of learn each one. You know the girls that have wider hips, so they wear these little flary things on the outside to make them look skinnier? I can do that with you. Move your hands over to the sides and let your shirt drop. He has a thinner waist just by doing that. Those are considerations you have. It's starting from the middle, nowhere, and he looks thinner just by having a wider shirt. So what can I do? I can turn you to the side, let's say. Okay, so if I look this way, he looks about the same width. I would go ahead and shoot him, let's say forward, leaning forward. So just to accentuate, lean forward for me.
From the waist?
Yeah, from the shoulders. I don't want to touch you. No offense.
You can touch whatever you want.
But okay, so if I was going to shoot him, I got to worry about how this looks. Do I need to clamp it back just a tiny bit? How does that look in regards to his physique, right? I want to make him shoot forward. I kind of want to shoot down so I can kind of thin these areas out, right? It's all about perception. Again, what we talked about before in regards to shooting with height and shooting different heights for certain people. Then I have to worry about his neckline. Russ, what happens when you wear the collared shirts?
I don't know.
You have no neck.
That's true.
Open that second button up.
Might mess up my,
Hey,
my mic
how
a
you
little
doing,
bit.
Russ? What happens? How much longer is his neck like that? If I did this, compared to, I probably am touching my mic right now. If I did this compared to this, I have a longer neckline. Regardless of the photo, I'm not trying to look like, 80s with beard and hair hanging out. What I'm trying to show you guys is clothing says a lot about a man's physique, and just those little accentuations of, am I trying to showcase that he has a longer neckline? Just opening that second button ever so slightly, even if you have to pin something there so it's not looking like Fabio back in the 80s, that's all it's supposed to look like. So there goes another way. If I was going to shoot you and you dress like today, and this isn't what you want to look like and represent, I'm okay with shooting just a portrait if that's what the person wanted for the day. But this goes back into, if I was photographing you and you were my client, I would go ahead and send you a whole email and saying, this is what you should wear for the day. These are considerations that you should have. So I would say in a case like this, we would have a discussion. Okay, Russ, do you feel comfortable right now? Are you fine? See, this is why you don't do this on air. Pick up your pants. Bring your pants if I'm shooting you full length. Make sure that you're not bringing attention to your belly, right? Make sure that your hands in your pockets aren't. Russ, how are your hands right now? The typical man. They are round and curved, okay? So what do I need to do? If you were gonna put your hands in your pockets and you're trying to be cool, put your fingers in your pockets. Kind of lean back, arch your back. See if I was trying to be cool, and then chin forward for me. So bring a little bit of knee, a little bit of back to the knee. He looks calm, he looks confident, he looks cool. It's not like before, he was like, just bringing just a little bit of confidence to you. There's no reason to overpose. That goes back into what I mentioned before about older men not trying so hard. Younger men would be like, older men are like, yeah, whatever. Like, I look good as long as my belly's not, hanging out in the photo. Have those considerations. Again, with the shirt, is this bringing attention to him? Is it doing this? That's not what I want. I want to make sure that it has a nice fitment to it. I just don't want attention to be brought to that. So again, posing wise, you're confident, you're cool. Would I use this light on you? No. You know why? Because I would start carving out these areas, and this isn't what I want to see of yours. I want to see this. I want to see Matt Damon, and I want to see, what's it called? Beckham. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move these lights. Can I have the, what's it called? Can I have the Zeppelin, please? Russ?
Yes.
Sue was the last person to photograph you?
Yeah, I think so.
How did she photograph you?
It was all natural light, sitting in a room with a reflector, but that I think was it.
Why?
Just to keep it casual and simple and easy, I think. It gave a little bit of a dimensionality, but yeah. It's been a while, so I don't.
Where'd
really
she have the
remember.
light, Russ?
What's that?
Where'd she have the light facing?
She had it on the left. I was sitting in the room, the light was coming in through the window on the left, and then reflector on the right, or she took that reflector away to give negative fill, as we were talking about.
Russ, why do I have the light over here?
You have the light over there to give dimensionality to my face?
Because I studied Sue's photo of you.
Oh, hey, okay. That might be it too.
So again, I got you covered. No worries here. There's no teamwork.
It's okay, you can drop it on me.
No, never. Safety in numbers. Okay. And you know what? I'm gonna move this, and all you gotta do is turn that to the side, and we'll be good. I'm not very picky, see? I told you. Turn it toward, yeah, that works for me. I gotta turn that light on. I'm glad I'm tall.
Probably important.
Okay, so when Sue photographed you, see, I love Sue. This is why I'm saying this. Okay, when Sue photographed you, it was very much Rembrandt light. You were wearing a black shirt. You were leaning forward because you were trying to hide anything that you may feel uncomfortable with. You were kind of just leaning forward. You were still crunched up. So the main aspects of the photo were your face, your hands, and the way that the black is hiding the physique that you have, the beautiful, godly physique you have. So, okay?
I adore you, Jeff.
I love you. You're like the brother I never had. I'm an only child, so you guys know that, so that's why I'm a little bit odd. We'll call it that. Perfect. Okay, where are we at? Fine here. I probably should stay out of monochrome. Perfect. I'm just going to take a preliminary shot of you just to make sure that we have great lighting. And look at that first photo and tell me what I'm missing. Christmas gnomes of Creative Live.
Folks online, Christmas gnomes, of course. We've got Chris and Nico and who's on audio? Oh my gosh, Matt in the booth, who are delightful, wonderful individuals, even though I forget Matt's name sometimes. He's from San Francisco, so I don't see him very often. Not often enough, Matt.
Thank you, ma'am. I think this is a little too close, though. I couldn't see where I was before. You got it, kid? So you guys know I refer to Lindsay as Adler or Adler Fashion Photography. That's very romantic of me. Thank you, ma'am. No, you can sit, if you want to Blake, you can Blake too. That's cool with me. If you guys aren't familiar with Blaking, Google it. Perfect. See where we are before? Okay. Shot comparatively. Again, I'm just judging light, making sure that he's comfortable and confident. So what do we see between those two photos? What's the first thing that he does? He retracts his chin, which isn't very, very flattering. Can I have my apple box? Thank you very much. I'm going to borrow that from me. Why am I doing that?
To make me look shorter?
To make you look shorter. I'm doing it because I need to go ahead and shoot at a higher angle. I don't want to see his chin. I want to see his face, right? So I want to emphasize his face and elongate his neck as much as possible. So do me a favor, Russ. Chin up a tiny bit. Lean forward a tiny bit for me. Perfect. I feel like we should be more intimate, you and I.
It's good.
A little bit closer. Chin up for me a tiny bit. Perfect. Okay, if Russ was my prospect, do me a favor, button the top one. This is the first time somebody's ever told you to put on your clothes.
It's true.
Let's do that again. Perfect. I'm going to show you guys comparatively. Take the, now unbutton it. See, this is confusing, man. Perfect. Perfect. Where's the music? Okay, let's look at those two photos quickly, and then I'm going to actually just photograph you, Russ. Okay, we're going to do it a tiny bit more. Okay, there we go. First button, second button. One button, I elongated his neck an inch longer, and he still doesn't look like Fabio because he doesn't have enough hair on his chest to do that. Okay, next thing I'm worried about is his chin. As I'm shooting him higher, he tends to do this, and his neckline is kind of contorted. So what I need to do, Russ, can you do me a favor? Drop your jawline, what's it called? Bring out your chin ever so slightly. So I'm going to work with him. You confident?
Yep.
I wasn't asking. I knew you're confident.
Okay.
I was saying you're confident. See,
My
not are you
answering that shows how not confident I am.
Okay. So I'm just going to shoot a portrait of you. So I want you to just put your neck up. I'm shooting a little taller than you are. Okay. So just by bringing your chin out ever so slightly, I'm reducing anything that I see under here. Perfect. I shoot a tiny bit of a higher angle. I'm going to be in your face, but since we're friends, that's okay.
Totally okay.
Stick out your chin ever so slightly. Perfect. Chin down a tiny bit. You don't have to fake laugh. I know you hate me, but you don't have to unjoke. Perfect. Okay, eyes up. Perfect. Chin forward. You look brooding. You look like you're mad at me.
Sorry.
Perfect. Perfect. So what do we have? Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so if he was one of my clients, what did I just do? I did whatever it took to get a smile out of him because he was like, I don't want to be here. Okay, so chin up a slight bit. I'm going to try to make you laugh again. Anybody know a funny song? Can we go with funny songs?
No, any funny.
Perfect. Okay, chin up. You had a gorgeous face there. What happened?
I don't know.
Perfect. Busy. So what do we have? I was able to elongate his neckline once that's done loading compared to that. What photo are we on?
Oh, yeah, it looks like it's still working.
It's still loading because my camera said busy. I'm on 6335 if you guys want to skip forward. 3.5, did I really just say that? 5.5. Load. Anyway, if that's not showing, what do we have here? That's not loading on there, so I'll just show you guys the image. I have an actual smile out of him, which is great. All I wanted was a natural shot out of him. I wanted to try to make him laugh so we have at least some expression. I didn't say smile. I tried my best to make sure that he was laughing. I tried to find interests that he had. I tried to make him laugh and saying his dad was Matt Damon. All the ways that I could try to make him laugh. Elongated his neck and try to bring back his neckline. The more he smiles, the more this goes away, right? Because he's flexing all the muscles in his neckline. So just him smiling made this disappear. The position that I'm shooting his neck, the fact that his button is open a tiny bit more, gave him a little bit of elongation to his neckline. And I think you look manly, very, very manly. Thank you,
you, my
sir.
friend.
I like your handshakes. Do we have to hide?
Awesome. No, we
Want to
don't
hide
have
for
to
the
hide.
light?
We want to come out here. And I want everyone to help me give my personal round of applause to Mr. Jeff Rojas. It's funny because people assume, and people are making jokes, you know how you take a picture of a man? You just put a man in front of a camera and then press the button. And as Jeff has shown, it is not that easy. Like, it's funny, I'm on camera every day, and yet for some reason, that made me extremely nervous. I don't know why, but it does. It does. And men, I don't know why we try to make that distinction. Men and women are both people, and people get nervous. And if you want to learn how to actually take good pictures of your men in your life, and they want that, we do. People pretend we don't, but we do. This was the first step.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.